here we go. We're rolling. Yeah, we're gonna get started. Derek was just telling me. What are you telling me about this Woodford Reserve?
Oh, yeah. So I was just saying that how bourbon actually extracts a lot of its flavor when you kind of make that mash bill. You put it in a barrel, right? And the whole idea of each bourbon, other than the mash, right? Everybody has their ingredients list. Where all the flavor comes from is from the wood, right? They put it in this barrel, and throughout time, it sucks up, right? Everything up from the wood, and that's what gives it that kind of dark flavor, right? And depending on where you're at, like certain weather conditions, it actually can fluctuate how much flavor it extracts too. That's why certain areas, like Bourbon County, they can get away with making whiskey with a smaller age statement compared to areas like you get Scotch or you even get Japanese whiskey, right? To them, they take about 12 to 18 years. Obviously, the higher end's 25 years, that higher, right? They're in colder regions, and because of that, there's less fluctuation, which means them absorbing the flavor from the barrel is a lot less of a process than, in warmer conditions like us. But on a side note, yeah, we're in an oak shortage, and Woodford Reserve,
Double oak.
double oak,
Yep.
part of being bourbon, right? And this was news to me when I first heard of it. But for something to be, titled as bourbon, you have this barrel, this oak barrel cask, and what they do is they kind of roast it, they char it. If you're ever interested, you look inside of a barrel that they use to make bourbon, it's like pitch black. They toast this up, they cook it, it kind of caramelizes, the wood that you're working with, right? Now, bourbon is only allowed to use that barrel once. In other words, every single time you make a new batch of bourbon, you need a new barrel. Rather than Scotch and other whiskeys, they don't need a new barrel. In other words, they can reuse their barrels. So compared to bourbon, once you make your barrel, you're done with it. You're done with the barrel, you move it around, you put it aside, right? And it's funny because actually some scotches, they actually advertise that the barrel they use is a bourbon cask.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So they actually use the same barrel that bourbons use. So the whole idea of double oak is once they're done, letting all the flavors extract from one barrel, right? They pour that same, all of that same liquid inside that barrel in another new barrel. So in essence, what's actually happening is they use two brand new oak barrels to make one drink. Rather than other drinks, they only are allowed to use one barrel, or why I even mention other drinks like Scotch, right, and other whiskeys, is they reuse a barrel, right? So,
It's special.
It's special. Of course, it sounds wasteful, right? I mean, imagine it. That's just like the idea is you buying a new pair of shoes for every time you go outside, right?
Right.
And
Inefficient.
It's inefficient. And to make a better analogy, imagine you buying two pairs of shoes, you wearing one of each sneakers just for that one occasion to go outside. So instead of wasting one pair of shoes every time you go outside, now you're wasting two pairs of shoes.
So it better be a good drink.
We enjoy it.
Okay.
We enjoy it. Honestly, for its price, there you'll notice that a lot of drinks, they have this mentality of, holding their pricing to its name or holding its pricing to an age statement. They're a big company. Anything they sell, they kind of, think it's worth this so much value, MSRP, right? Or if they think it's, we've been making this bourbon, it's been in a cask for 15 years, which is fairly long for bourbon, right? You'll notice a lot of bourbons actually can be as young as 4 to 6 years old, rather than the Scotch that we drink, 12 years is usually the minimum, right? So you already can see the difference there, right? But yeah, this is. If you want to take a sip now.
Yeah, let's give it a try.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Thanks for sitting down.
Of course.
So now, just a quick intro, I guess. 5 minutes in. Yeah, we just wanted to get it started because, yeah, it was cool. Honestly, we could have, like, pressed record from the moment we started driving. You're tasting it? Yeah.
Oh.
But anyways, welcome. I'm sitting down with a good friend of mine, a longtime friend. His name is Derek. I call him Derek. Funny enough, I actually wanted to start with, how do you say your name? Can you remind me how you say your name?
Oh, you mean my Vietnamese name?
Yeah.
Right, Thieu. Yeah.
Full name?
Oh, Thieu Ngo-Phan.
Thieu Ngo-Phan.
Yeah. Min is part of the middle name too, but.
That's on your driver, like, that's the official name, right?
Yeah. It's all recording. It's Thieu Min Ngo-Phan, right? Almost every single sort of written portion that I kind of identify myself with, even email, that type of stuff, it's always the Vietnamese portion.
Really?
Derek is specifically almost just like a by tongue type of situation where I talk to people.
Yeah.
You know, and because of that, what's funny is a lot of people misspell my English name too, because I never write it down, right? It's always...
They put CK?
Oh, they put the double R-I-C-K, you know, instead of the typical D-E-R-E-K, right?
Yeah.
And what's hilarious is I never met another Derek that wasn't spelled the way that I just spelled it right now, D-E-R-E-K.
Everyone spells it like that?
Yeah, even famous people. Derek Cheater, baseball player. Everybody knows his name, D-E-R-E-K. Yeah.
Okay. That's actually really interesting. So where did Derek come from then?
So, and this is probably the reason why my name isn't documented, like on my birth certificate or any other sort of form, right? Is I was told that my oldest sister actually named me Derek, where there is this famous Eastern singer, can't tell if, I think it's Chinese, either Chinese or Vietnamese. His name was Derek, and maybe she was just had that boy craze at that day, so she to kind of show her fandom, you know.
She suggested that name?
Yeah, she just. I mean, you know my dog Bruce. His name Bruce came from Bruce Wayne. Comes from some sort of inspiration. So
Bruce Wayne, the Batman Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
That was your idea? Or your
No, that's
idea?
my brother's. That's my brother's. That's.
He likes
that's
Batman?
Yeah, he loves Batman. So when they see a German Shepherd, see the ears, that kind of that Batman figure. He also had a dog too, right? And the silhouette of it is very similar to Bruce. So that's where Bruce got his name Bruce from Bruce Wayne. So similarly, I'm Derek because that Chinese singer, Chinese Vietnamese singer Derek, and because it was probably something that happened after. That's why none of it was probably documented, because everything was till from day one. And then midway, my sister's just like, I'm just going to call him Derek, And
oh, so this is already after you were born.
Yeah.
You've been alive for some time.
Yeah, most likely, yeah. I mean, this is stories I hear, right? But I've also heard stories, when you raise as a kid, you hear all these stories. Oh, we found you in a dumpster. That type of stuff.
Excuse me. Yeah.
It's hilarious. Still to this day, I don't know if I'm a dumpster baby or not.
Sure. Or what if we're in an accident?
Oh no, that's already. My family. I am the accident.
Right. You mentioned there's a big difference. Or.
So the reason I call myself
late.
Yeah. The reason I call myself an accident is, it's probably an Eastern culture thing. Right, it's very traditional that everybody wants a boy. My dad specifically, with my mom had 3 daughters first. 1, 2, 3, oldest, second, third, all of them were girls. So I assume they kept trying until they got a boy. The idea is to kind of pass on your name. It sounds kind of, outdated. Some people may seem, but traditionally, I don't blame someone wanting to kind of pass on their last name, right? It has its own nice essence and touch too. So after they got my brother, John, right? Funny enough, his he has a Vietnamese name too, but his English name is actually part of his documented name too. So they planned that out, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah. So John is part of his name, but yeah, to me, once they already got that boy, my brother got born before me, 5 years before me, right? So well past a certain kind of time frame, they wanted another kid. I make the joke, you know, it's like, I guess one day my dad was just too lazy to go to convenience store. You know, he was just feeling it one day. It's like, you know, condom too far away. Let's just risk it, you know. And due to his risk, I was born. So I'm grateful.
There you go. Slim chance.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to recall, because I actually don't remember exactly, is do you remember how and when we met? My guess is that it happened at John Muir.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah,
okay, for sure.
So
John Muir is our middle school.
Yeah. I don't know.
Probably math class, I imagine.
No. We met each other in 7th grade. And there's this English/history, right? It was at the time where both of it's taught by the same teacher. We had a
Mr.
teacher,
Pellis?
Mr. Pellis. Yeah, we had that teacher. You see, you recalled the name instantly.
Yeah,
right?
I remember that guy for sure.
Yeah, very vocal politically, right?
Was he?
Yeah. That guy you know, it's as an educator we find it unprofessional, but at that time, you know, at least for some of us, it was kind of inspiring. You know, and that was we were in 7th grade was about 2007, 2008. So a lot of times he was actually talking about Barack Obama.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild. I don't even remember any of that.
Oh, we were kids, right?
Okay.
So we had this teacher. I actually knew one of your friends, Nick, first, right? And because I met you through him, that's what I thought you and Nick were close friends.
Nick, right? The football player?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like, you know, it's funny you say Nick, the football player, rather than saying his full name, right?
Yeah, I guess you could have said that too, yeah.
Yeah.
But he was known to be a football guy.
Oh, no, but, you know, you kind of say a full name when you have that kind of relationship. We usually kind of give titles to someone we're not as close as, right? Like, for example, we're never going to say Tayshaun the wrestler, no matter how good of a wrestler he is. We say Tayshaun Clark because we're connected to him enough where we don't attach these identities to him because we don't need to, right? But going beyond the point, I thought he was close to you, right? You were close with him. And since I was close to him, we kind of crossed paths from time to time. You know, we both had a deep love for hot Cheetos. If you remember baked hot Cheetos back then. And
baked hot Cheetos.
Oh, yeah. That was the health craze, right? There's no regular chips. It has to be baked. Good direction.
Of course.
They took soda out, too. I was upset, but, you know, it's probably the big play, right?
You like soda?
I can say I truly enjoy soda. I think it's also because how rarely I drink it. So the few times I do drink it, it's like, oh man, that is, you know, I rarely use this term, but it's like nectar. It is good.
I had a teacher that called Diet Coke's the nectar of life.
See? And it's funny, they use the same term too, the terminology of nectar, right? I don't drink soda as much as some people I do know, like they drink soda so often, like every meal they have to have a soda, right? And to them, that's actually something hard to cut off. Sugar is one of those, like, you're just so used to it in your daily lives, we kind of forget how it can be addicting at times, you know? Something without sugar, we'll say, oh, this doesn't taste right. And then at a certain point, we're unaware of it too. So one of the biggest change that, you know, part of the small diets that I had, you know, back in college is I started eating wheat bread. and it was a huge change for me. I'm like, I don't like wheat bread. It's too bitter, you know. And I always remember online people would say, yeah, American bread is so sweet. You know, the typical white bread we have, the sliced bread, Wonder Bread, whatever. You know, me being a little defensive, I'm like, no, it doesn't. It just tastes normal, right? A donut is a sweet bread, right? So I ate wheat bread for almost like 2 or 3 years. I would say I stopped because I just stopped eating sliced bread in general. But to get back to my point, when I started eating white bread again, I was just like, oh dang, this is extremely sweet. I finally understand like what these people out of country are talking about, right? And I'm not talking about buttermilk. I'm just talking about typical white Wonder Bread. When you eat it, you actually see how sweet it is. It's not, you know, a typical carb anymore, like how we used to eat rice. We eat rice as kind of like a filler with carbs, right? But when I pretty much revisited eating white bread again, it was kind of like a shock to me. Like, wow, I've been eating this and not knowing how sweet it was. And it's the same thing with all forms of sugar too. You know, it's sugar's put in everything, and sometimes we forget about it. It's because, you know, we're so used to it. We try to act like, oh, I know what's put in my food, right? But, you know, stuff like, you see videos of it all the time, or even just looking at the nutritional value. A McChicken has like, 10 grams of sugar, right? As a kid, how would you know that? No one looks at that.
Yeah.
When you think about it, where's the sugar being added? Ideally, it's just chicken and bread, you know, whatever sauce they have. Highly doubt their lettuce has sugar, right? It'd be very upsetting if that's true, if they actually have sugar, but there kind of goes to the point of sugar just being added to everything. And then once you eat it all that time, you get used to it. And now what happens, and this is why I call it addicting, right? It's not because, you know, when you're at home, you're scratching yourself saying, I need more sugar, right? But now when you're eating something without as much sugar, it doesn't taste right. It doesn't sit right. You know, similar to how I eat wheat bread. I'm like, this is beyond bitter. But if everybody just started eating that from the get-go, they wouldn't have known that, right? And that conflict of flavor is kind of part of the addiction. You know, people who drink soda all the time, they have it as such part of their daily meal that I even ask some people, I'm like, yeah, just switch to water. They're like, no, I can't. My meal doesn't feel right if I don't pair it with that carbonated drink. You know, whether Diet Coke or whatever, Diet Pepsi, I think that's what you said.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy when something so normal as just a drink actually affects a little bit of how your experience is in a meal, saying, oh yeah, this doesn't sit right. You know, so yeah.
Everything in moderation.
It's, in a sense, I mean.
So I have In-N-Out on Fridays usually, and that's the day that I drink soda.
Oh, is that like a little reward system? Because it's Friday too, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's like at the end of the day. So my Fridays usually look like go to work, teach, basketball session, and then go play basketball for like 2 or 3 hours.
Damn, earning them calories for the In-N-Out too.
Yeah, and I don't eat lunch these days, so it's usually like the first meal.
Is that a thing?
What's up, Bruce?
Sorry.
We also have a guest here,
Yeah,
Derek's dog. His name is Bruce.
Yeah, he's over here walking up like people like him.
Yeah, we'll learn more about him in a second.
So I do have a question for that. Do you skip out on lunch just because you don't get hungry, or is it due to lack of time? Like when you wake up, oh, I gotta go to work right away. You know, there are all of these kind of checklist things that we have when we wake up. Like, all right, here's my to-do list, right? It's a mini to-do list, and that's why you skip out on lunch.
Part of the reason, mostly because I guess it's like a productivity, focus, alertness type of thing that I'm trying to do. So by skipping the meal, I feel a little bit more of all those things, more focused, more alert. Usually, if I eat in the afternoon, I get really sleepy.
Yeah, I was
Like-
gonna ask,
like-
is it because, that food coma?
Very bad food coma. Even without eating, I still get really sleepy
Oh.
during that time. So yeah, just not eating lunch has kind of helped with that.
Okay. So do
Yeah.
you eat at least any form of snacks? Because, some
I'd
people
be
like to
snacking
eat.
for sure.
Yeah, so you
Sometimes,
eat like, whether it's chips or nuts
something
or
like
fruits.
that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes I try not to, but most of the time, like I said, I be snacking.
And it's funny because earlier today we were just talking about how like you could snack forever.
Pretty much.
It's dangerous, and that could be the compartment. It's just, I don't know how your diet was as a kid, but I know a lot of people, right, my family included, where meals aren't a big thing for them. It's snacking, right? And when you do that every day, well, guess what? It kind of follows you a little bit later on, where you're skipping on these lunch, and because maybe you're not used to eating a lunch, you get this kind of food coma because you're eating something a little bit more heavy than what your body's used to, right? And then it just kind of continues on that process of snacking. I got snack here, snack there. All right, just be a little bit careful. You better buy your snacks on sale.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, some of the kids will also share their food too. Like they bring chips and candy,
You mean
all kinds of stuff.
share with you, or you mean like they do their trays?
No, like share with me.
Oh,
Like they'll give me like a hot Cheeto or a Taki.
oh, hey.
They like Takis, man. These kids love Takis.
Oh, it's it's a strong flavor. I love it. That's one of the memories we have too, or I have. Just eating those big hot Cheetos and sharing it with you, just like it's a good start of creating a bond. Right?
Sure.
Enjoying something together.
Yeah.
Right, what you like. That's why usually we meet. And this kind of continues the question of not only how we met, but why our friendship kind of developed too, right? Because, you meet a lot of people, but whether you stay friends with them or even get closer,
Yep.
something might have happened.
Yep.
That kind of having something in common, what we had in common, and, probably one of the reasons why I strive to be friendly with you more than Nick, even though I met him first, and, I used to BS with him all the time, right? Was because you're Vietnamese. Hear your last name Tran, I'm like, okay, that's 80% Vietnamese. And then one day you just verbalized, right? You said, oh, I love banh mi, and you said it in the right accent too. So I was like, oh man, that guy's 200% Vietnamese, no doubt about it. And that's probably one of the few things that got us a little closer, because although we met in 7th grade, I wouldn't say we're friends. Right? We just, like, oh, you know my name, I know your name, right? Most people knew my name for the wrong reasons. He's the loud kid. He's a troublemaker.
Yep.
I can't even give myself the nice title of class clown, because you have to be funny. It wasn't funny at the time, just loud.
Yeah.
But yeah, later on, I think our friendship kind of grew, funny enough, more in, I would say, end of high school. Honestly, we knew each other.
Right.
Still, I guess we can say the longer we're exposed to each other, right? We kind of know each other's antics a little bit more, right?
Yep.
I was foolish, right? You were a little bit kind of maintain, right? You got your goals. Here's your classes. Get your A's, right? You had basketball at the time too, right? And the only time we've actually started building that relationship more is when we started sharing classes more, and then we competed with each other. Another common ground we had was, I would say we're both kind of like the top of our class, let's say. You know, not top 20% or top 10%, but let's say top 30%. Like, we're getting B's and A's.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, obviously not me. I get like B plus A minuses because, you know, homework's 10% of your grade. But hey, if it was all test, I would be a straight A student. But yeah, I think that's where we started hanging out more.
So like junior, senior year?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
because all the math classes, I think French too. Did we have French together?
We didn't have French together until our third year. So like you said, junior year.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a half class, if you recall.
Yeah, it was like after school, no?
It was after school. Sometimes I didn't go, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think what was funny was freshman and sophomore year, we had a lot of the same classes. We just weren't in those classes at the same time. You know, so to our exchange, it would be like, what was on the test today? What was covered, right? The only class that, funny enough, I do recall us having together is our 9th grade social studies class, Mr. Ravy.
Ooh.
Yeah, and you notice how it probably popped up again to use, because what we remembered about him is he used to have a wife that was Vietnamese.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, you know, him talking about her all the time probably embedded us knowing that he had a Vietnamese wife longer, but it was that kind of commonality I was talking about earlier, where to you and me, I'm like, oh, he's Vietnamese, I'm Vietnamese. You know, we have something in common. You know, he has good grades. I try to have good grade. You know, that's another thing we kind of focus on to have in common, right? And when we kind of attach those titles, right? Or I'm jumping a little ahead of myself. Right, that might be kind of confusing. But when we kind of attach these events and all of this together, that's how we kind of link memory. You know, earlier, what I was saying is, I find it funny that you say Nick the football player. That's the title you attach to him, right? And because that's your linkage, that's how you might remember him. Or maybe that's how most people remember him. So that's why you describe it to me like, you know, that's something we both can relate to, right?
Yep.
So one of those common things that we kind of, you know, our quote unquote title of Mr. Ravy, he's the social studies teacher with the Vietnamese wife.
Yep.
Oh, he's the social studies teacher who had
his room stank.
His room stank. Yeah.
Did not open the windows. This guy would not open his windows.
You know,
he would be hella salty if we asked him to open the windows.
He took offense by it.
Yeah, bro, just crack the windows. Man.
Oh,
trying to breathe in here.
You know what's hilarious is, I don't even know if that was just the issue, because there was other classrooms that had no open windows too. Think about all the math classes. They didn't got no open windows. You know,
true.
They didn't.
Well, maybe he didn't want to run the AC either.
Oh.
I don't think he ran the AC.
Oh, man.
Most classes probably ran the AC.
Oh, of course. And you know what's funny is, I don't know if you remember this joke, but one day we had a substitute teacher for Mr. Ravy, right? It was a cool guy. You know, he listened to a lot of underground rap, which, you know, we were into at the time. Or I say at the time because I definitely fell out of it, right? I know you kind of somewhere keep in the loop. But yeah, so he was a really cool guy. And just the first thing he said, it cracked us up. We had a wonderful day just because the one joke, right? Where we came in this room, we didn't even know we had a sub. We're like, why does it smell normal? Why can I breathe normally? And I don't know if one of us just said that comment out loud, but the sub responded, oh yeah, it smell in here, it was stanky. So I opened up all the windows, I Febrezed everything, and that's where I knew. We were looking at each other like, so we weren't crazy. You know, it's not us being boys, just trying to be mean to our teachers, you know. But there's another adult, someone who had developed their brain, you know, more, they got that front cortex, you know, development. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, this room was DJ nasty. We gotta do something about it.
Free these kids. Jesus.
Oh my God. a fun memory.
Sure.
Right? We hate, there's a lot of memories that we can hate at the time, but when we think back about it, it's comedy.
Yeah. There's plenty of stuff like that. In the moment, it sucks, but you look back and laugh.
Yeah, right.
I guess that's you set me up perfectly. I was going to ask you about high school next. You already kind of touched upon what our relationship was like towards the end, and I agree with that. That kind of makes sense to me, too. It's like first couple of years, had similar classes, but not too close, but those last couple of years, talked a lot more, hung out a lot more.
Yeah. Kind of stuck with each other. We didn't even have a choice.
And like Gaurav and David Hernandez, we always kind of mixed with those guys too.
Yeah, honestly. Poor David Rella.
Yep.
That poor guy had 5 out of 6 classes with me. Poor guy. I say poor guy because I know what kind of kid I was, Poor guy's like, dude, I got this ear infection, you ain't making it better. Oh, man, poor David.
Yeah. But I do want to ask about high school. I guess for you, what was that experience like? What do you think of when you think back to high school? I'm sure you have a lot to say about it.
So, do you mind if I break it down? So, what kind of experience were you looking for? Do you mean my experience with the teachers, my experience socially, like with all of the other students, my experience outside of high school, like during the high school time, but at home life? What were you?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to ask it all.
Okay, so...
Yeah, tell me about... Actually, glad you mentioned the home life, too. I know you had an interesting situation, let's say, 'cause I was also working at the time.
Yeah, here and there.
Yeah. And family is something that we'll get into for sure. Interesting family situation. But yeah, just thinking about, how is it overall for you? What kind of person were you in high school?
Yeah. This is something you're gonna hear quite often, and I don't know if it's an age thing, but I would say the most change that I've had was in college, which when the time comes, we'll talk about it. So as for high school, I didn't feel like there was much development. There was no character, there's no brand I'm trying to show like, oh, I'm a tough kid, or I'm the funny kid, or whatever, right? I'll kind of start off the list with how I broke it down. I think that'd be kind of simple.
Sure, yeah.
So academically, with the teachers, it was a wonderful experience. As an educator myself, all of my teachers were kind of inspiring in their own way, right? Some teachers who were close, they kind of taught me a little bit of how they're kind of human, right? Because usually when we see teachers, of course we know they're humans, but if we see them outside of school, it kind of shocks us. It's kind of like seeing an albino tiger. Yeah, like whoa! I saw him at Safeway. Did you know that he went? And then I was freaking out. He goes to Safeway too, right? So it taught me that, right? They're people. They have feelings. They have any sort of emotions, good days, bad days, that type of stuff. I would say my favorites and worst teachers were all in high school too, which is cool, right?
Okay.
My favorite teacher being Mr. Costa, right? My math teacher, I've only had him for 1 year. So sad. And I had him freshman year too. So it was, I would say, not even during...
Algebra 2?
Algebra 2, yeah. I would say it was during a phase where I wasn't very impressionable. And that's the funny part, right? Of why I find it weird that, he did make an impression on me. He has this morality in which I actually follow to this day as an educator, where you don't have to do anything my way. You just have to get the job done, right? And I really, really like that aspect of him, as someone who's been constantly in trouble, right? Constantly in trouble, sent to, so many disciplinary stuff like OCS, you remember that?
Yep.
Right? I was, banned from going to those grade field trips. I don't know if you remember, due to, certain disciplinary, like, if you get suspended this amount of times, if you get sent to OCS this amount of time, you can't go, right? So to him, one day he just said, hey, I don't mind if you don't do the math topics, but it is an issue when you distract other people's. That I'm not okay with, you know. And maybe it's just him leveling to me like almost like an adult, where hey, I have a cognitive mindset, apply logic to me, right? It wasn't this disciplinary like, hey, if you talk back or if you distract them, I'm gonna send you to OCS, that type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Where it's this kind of typical reaction that I'm used to, and with that, you know, how I actually apply that same kind of philosophy is synonymous, and it holds parallel in its own ways. When I teach a lot of students topic, you know, most kids who have trouble with the topic, they dislike the topic, right?
Yep.
And then what I usually kind of start off with them is, hey, you don't have to like the topic, but you do have to see the importance of it, right? You know, I would say one of the biggest topic that students have trouble with is math, right? So I teach a lot of math, and you know, I give them the same feel that he did, where he's just like, you don't have to like math, but you have to see how it's important for us. You know, we use math every day. You know, even if most of us have careers or fields or go into jobs that doesn't use math too much, it just happens naturally, right? We're at a point where we all have calculators on us, right? We have a calculator on our phone, right? That's what I mean. But if you ask someone what's 7 times 6 and they don't get the answer, you know they're going to be ridiculed. And you know that they will kind of almost be looked down upon in their kind of group. Kind of like, wow, he doesn't even know basic multiplication. Even though we're Hollywood actors and, you know, it has nothing to do with us, right? So that's my best experience, right? Or I won't even say best experience. That's just a teacher.
Memorable.
Memorable, and I aspire to be, right? And we've had our worst teachers, right? Some being bad due to the circumstances, not really much of the teacher themselves, like Mr. Arabia, as we were talking about. It's a stanky room. We're not excited to go in, right? But I don't blame him as a teacher, right? He himself in no way failed to do his academic duty, you know, teach us our definition terms, that type of stuff. My worst experience was our 11th grade teacher, you know, and I'll be courteous enough to not say the name, right, or even gender, right?
Was it history?
No, math.
Oh, okay.
Math.
All right.
Oh, I'll tell you, it was the class that we had calculus together.
Sure, yeah.
BC.
Okay. No, I know math.
Yeah. You know math. Yeah, I hope you do. And that experience, I would say not only is it the worst experience, but I would say it was the only time I've ever gave the title of bad teacher. I've been blessed, right? I'm grateful in more ways than one. But when it comes to the field of my adolescence and all the teachers that I've dealt with, all of the teachers I've had were either good, decent, great, excellent, just pretty much anything more than a 5, right? 5 being, you know, average, right? She was the first one below that 5, right? And although it was a horrible experience, every bad experience I've had with her, I've tried to recently take note of and to kind of reflect on me being an aspiring high school educator to not do those things. So it's good in its own way too. It's been productive, you know. Certain aspects of, you know, something as small as being stubbornness, right? I think I've told you this story. Like I said it multiple times. It upsets me where one time, because I was the troublemaker in class, I was just not sleeping, not dozing off, but I just had my head down, right? And someone behind me was talking, and then she told me, like, hey, Derek, shut up. Not even, hey, calm down, Derek. One, the language she said was outright, you know, unprofessional. Right? There's harsher words, but I'm trying to euphemize it, right? And I had a whole argument saying, oh, it wasn't me, you know. What was funny is the voice was a girl, too. So I don't even know how she thought it was me. But, you know, her mindset is I know you. You're a troublemaker. It's you. Just admit fault. I don't want to argue with you. Don't make it hard on both of us. Maybe I am a little bit rebellious, but I also know at the time in my head what made sense was it wasn't me, right? And she messed with my brain so much that I even doubted myself. I questioned myself. I'm like, did I sleep talk or something? Was I mumbling while I was asleep? And then maybe she told me like, hey, shut up, you're talking in your sleep. But again, I wasn't even asleep. So that was just one of those kind of like, I guess gaslighting, that could be the closest term, where you're just fed this narrative so much where you even doubt yourself at a certain point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. It messes with your mind.
Oh, 200%. And I think I told you this. I as much of a troublemaker I was still living in this kind of Asian culture mentality where your teacher does no wrong, right? Like you can, and maybe that's why I also felt that I never had a bad teacher, because all of my teachers I gave a level of respect to them. One, them being an adult, which is something I was raised with, and two, them, being the teacher, the position itself.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, just that whole aspect of I wanted to believe her, but I also know my own truth too. We got back and forth in an argument, and in that way, all these teachers that I've like kind of experienced, I know I've only talked about two, the best and the worst, but most of them, I can't say each of them, but most of them I've kind of taken apart of what I liked about them, or maybe what I don't like about them, and adjust that to me being an educator, right? And just as a person overall too, right? Small thing that, I try to strive for at least is something like not everybody has to be your friend, right? I think that's a hard lesson for a lot of people sometimes, especially educators, is I don't care if my student likes me, my goal is to have them, learn the topic I'm covering. Now, that doesn't mean do whatever, any means necessary. Not that mindset, right? But I shouldn't take a part of them liking me to stop any actions that I can find productive. That shouldn't be any part of, I shouldn't yell at them because they might see me as a mean teacher, or, maybe I should give a lot of extra credit because they'll love my class, have these class parties, and what's funny is, I don't know about you, but the most memorable teachers I have aren't the most fun teachers. They're not the teachers where I had, the best of moments of, right? But the two examples that I gave were just experiences, and maybe I do want to be memorable because when I do teach a lesson, I want to just kind of stick with them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You want them to learn?
Yeah, socially too, right? Part of our job is, teaching them,
how to be people.
How to be people, right? We're not going to give a moral stance, right, politically, but, something as simple as, hey, don't be rude. I think that's something we all can benefit from, right?
Yep.
It doesn't hurt.
Very interesting. While you were talking, something else came to mind that I thought would be interesting to hear about. And maybe you could, both for like, to hear from your perspective where it came from, and then also maybe how somebody else in like a similar position could benefit from it. So pretty much asking about your troublemaking, right? So you mentioned that in middle school it came up a lot.
Yeah.
In sharing this experience with our math teacher, you weren't afraid to stand up for yourself, let's say, right? Like you felt wronged, and most kids would be like, all right, whatever, I'll just be quiet. But you, from my observation, from knowing you, you're the type of person that will like speak their mind.
No.
And again, maybe that's gotten you in trouble. Like that's part of the reason that's gotten you in trouble.
Oh.
So I'm just curious, where do you think this troublemaking comes from?
Oh.
Like, what is it about you that has gotten you caught up in situations like this?
Mix of stuff. Right? So like, it's I've already self-reflected so many times about this, and I find it funny.
Okay,
right?
I look forward to hearing this.
So, just to kind of clarify some things, the whole display of speaking out, when something is wrong, I think that's a lot more valiant. You make it sound than what it actually is. So I'll rephrase it.
Sure.
That's me being stubborn. Right? That's me being stubborn.
Yeah.
So I speak out loud because I'm such a stubborn guy. And admittingly, I'm a stubborn guy. I try not to, right? Depending on situations, right? We were just talking about earlier about like picking your battles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in my situation, I pick more battles than I shouldn't, right? And if we're still following that analogy. So speaking out my mind, or just kind of like being a little bit more vocal than others. I think that's the area you're trying to project to, right? It's a mixture of stubbornness, me being a troublemaker. It definitely is. As I said, I'm a loud person.
Mm-hmm.
It probably has to do with my family.
Mm-hmm.
We are naturally loud people, right?
We as in your family?
My family. No, not my culture. I'm specifically noting my family. Like, if we're go to a wedding, we gotta be the loudest one.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So, one could be our family. Two, as you know, in a family of 5, right, a fair amount of kids, not as big as, some other people who have like 13 siblings, but as the youngest, maybe there was a part of me that, we have to have that attention. Mm-hmm. Right. One thing I've noticed from a lot of my family gathering, right, is there's a lot of people who are trying to make jokes, right, and I think they want the attention to be the clever and funny one, right,
mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it's them wanting to be clever, right, and the reason why I feel it's a little bit more attention seeking is the whole aspect of if no one laughs at their joke, or if no one hears their joke, they'll repeat it again, right? Or if no one laughs at it, when the opportunity comes, they'll kind of restring that same joke again, right? To kind of get a chuckle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
they want people to hear it.
Yeah, I'm a genius, right? So when you're kind of growing up in that environment, I know it sounds kind of cliche, the whole you're a product of your environment, but in a sense, yeah, I'm going to be naturally loud. I kind of want to stand out, I want to be the funny one, right?
Yeah.
In that aspect. And that's not just for certain family events, like with my whole family, but like I said, in that whole family of 5, these are 5 kids with just single mom, right? Yeah. Just my mom. So how much parents' attention do you get, right? It's already cut in half due to the lack of a father figure, but now it's split between 5 people, maybe 4. By the time I was born, my sister was already an adult by then, so it wasn't as, placed in our family circumstances. But yeah, and because of that whole attitude, it naturally comes to the other social aspect that kids have, which is school life, right? Mm-hmm. It kind of transpired to, I want to be the loud, funny one, right? And that mixture is probably what got me in trouble, right? Me wanting to be loud, me being stubborn, making a joke. The teacher already told me, all right, Derek, that's enough. But since I didn't get a chuckle, I gotta re-implement that same joke, right? And this is a little mix of this too, right? By nature, we like to blame things and not take our own fault. But I also had ADHD,
yep.
Right? So, and funny enough, not self-diagnosed too, but I was prescribed certain medicine, and I stopped taking it after 5th grade, right? So in middle school, I was supposed to take it, but I just never went to the nurse's office during that lunch area, because you're supposed to take the medicine like with food, right? But yeah, I stopped taking that. So
was that your own choice, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, that was actually my own choice. And something that I'm proud of, and we'll talk about this later, is how I kind of used my ADHD as an advantage, right? And I'm very, very proud of it, honestly. It's something, you know, I know by nature we're just talking about how I wanted to be a person to kind of present themselves. I wanted to be loud, stand out. But this one, I feel like it's fair, right? But yeah, I'm a troublemaker for those few reasons. And as a kid, you don't know that, right? As a kid, you're not like, oh, it's because I'm stubborn.
Yeah.
It's me being stubborn that the teacher's not listening to me,
Yeah.
right? And here's another mixture too. How we're raised in a culture where the adult's never wrong, right? Adults are never wrong. And that aspect made it so our voice is never heard, right? Anything we say, if we were to talk back, that's technically rude, you know? Something as small as if my mom's, you know, yelling at me for the wrong reasons, and I've said, oh, but it wasn't me, it was someone else. They're like, oh, you're gonna talk back? Are you being rude to me? You know, and I'm like, and I got no argument because
Like, well, shit, my bad.
the logic was if you talk back, you're rude.
Yeah.
And since technically I'm talking back, I'm being rude right now. And, you know, as a kid, I try to know better. I try not to be rude, right? I'm loud, but, you know, try not to be rude. So I'm like, all right, shut up, right? So in that same position, you know, when you silence someone so much, it kind of eats at you. And now that's my home life. So when I go to school, someone trying to silence me, you already can imagine what's going to happen, right? It's not going to end well. I'm going to be like, no, I want my voice to be heard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It all makes sense now, but as a time when you see it as a kid, you're just being noisy.
You're doing it.
You're just doing it, yeah.
You're not reflecting.
You're not. You're not going, I'm only being this mad because mom doesn't hear me out, and this teacher has, you know, it's not her fault, it's not his fault, right?
Yeah.
So that's it, right? So that's the whole idea of why I am that kind of person. As of right now, I think you know me as adamant, right? Which is, again, a euphemized term for stubborn.
Yeah. You could say that.
I love it. Well, I'm just going to say it. 'Cause
sure. Embrace it.
Yeah, we build that relationship where, you know, I know you've come to understand it too, which is hilarious.
Yep.
I appreciate that, by the way. But I'm also very vocal in a certain stance because I do feel a lot of interactions, negative interactions more specifically, like misunderstandings, right? That becomes bigger than what actually comes through, well, misunderstandings. So not communicating properly, right? So sometimes I want to be very clear. I feel like if I fully explain something, it would solve things, right? Kind of like, oh, this is a misunderstanding. Let me fully explain it, right? You know, I feel like I'm in a situation where someone just got shot and I'm holding a gun for no reason. And then the police looks at me like, oh, you shot him. And I'm trying to explain, oh, this is a misunderstanding. I literally found a gun on the floor and I picked it up thinking, you know, I'm trying to inspect it. Yeah. Little did I know about the full situation, right? So I feel like I'm always in that aspect. I'm always explaining myself, right?
Yeah.
But I think...
Are you innocent?
Am I innocent? Well, I try... Let's answer this. Would I need to explain myself if I wasn't innocent, right? And of course I'm going to say I'm innocent because I feel like I wouldn't explain myself if I wasn't innocent, right? At that point, I wouldn't be explaining myself. I would be getting out of it, you know, sneaking away. Like if I killed someone, now I'm BSing. I'm making a story, right? Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Which in this perspective, it makes sense, but to the hearer, to the audience, they're very similar. Right, an excuse versus explaining themselves is the same things, right? Yeah. So I don't blame them if they think I'm BSing, by the way. So I always feel like I'm in that position where I'm like, I'm trying to clarify. I feel like, oh, I think you guys are misunderstanding some things. Because I also talk, in a sense, like I think ahead.
Yeah.
Not in a way like, oh, I'm one step ahead, but sometimes I think before I speak, and not in a way that it should be good, but like I'm already thinking about what else to say, but I kind of forget what's happening right now, which is a bad thing in itself, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, right, um, this is communication. We talk, us two can say, hey, what do you want to have for dinner, right? And you threw out the answer as, do you want to get pizza, right? And in my head, I'm responding, right? I say, well, I just had pizza yesterday. Now, you as a logical person, you take that as a no, he doesn't want pizza, right? Is that correct? And it's fair. I don't blame you, right? It makes sense. But in my head, I'm just thinking about what I recently ate, just normally, and then I also think of maybe I should show Ryan this pizza place. Right, I enjoyed it. I want him to like. I'm about to recommend this, but again, in my head, I'm so busy thinking about this pizza place, but the words that come out is I had pizza yesterday, right? What didn't follow up was I had pizza yesterday,
and it was really good.
And it was really good. I want to show you this place again.
Let's go again.
Yes, exactly. But then again, all you hear is I had pizza yesterday.
He doesn't want to eat.
He doesn't want to eat pizza. Exactly. You kind of fill in the blank. You concluded that whole aspect. So, that's a trouble with me for sure. I overthink. It's horrible. And going back to what we said earlier, we got to pick our battles.
Yeah.
Sometimes people don't want an explanation. Sometimes people don't need an explanation. So why is it my job to explain? Why am I stuttering at this cop saying, oh, no, I didn't. I was just expecting, the gun. Maybe sometimes, hey, it was a shitty position. I was shit out of luck. Wrong place, wrong time. I just got to, naturally let things proceed. Hopefully when I'm getting interrogated, that's the time where I can explain myself, right? That's the time I'm explaining myself. And, those types of stuff I just need to be more patient about, because that frantic moment, I'm holding that gun and everyone's like, he did it. Look, he has the gun and, dead in his hand. I'm over here saying, no, I only picked up that gun because I thought it was interesting. And now the police are saying, oh, so you're interested in this gun, are you, huh? How long have you been,
So you like fold under the pressure.
if no one's good under pressure, right? Some better than others. And me, I'm one of those people where when it comes to communicating, horrible under pressure, horrible. Except for, maybe my job. But then that's a different kind of pressure,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, this is fascinating because while you're speaking, I could take this in many different directions, but let's stay on this for maybe one more question. Given your experience as a troublemaker and everything that you just shared, does it help you relate to your kids now that you come across? Does it help you like better understand having these experiences with these teachers? And then two, the first question is for like kids generally, but then like two, have you ever dealt with any troublemakers that stand out to you that you were able to connect with or help?
So the first part, has me being a troublemaker played any role being beneficial to kind of understand students that I work with, right? Yes, of course, because there are times where when I see a kid being loud, I understand them. I'm like, oh, they just want attention, and when I say that, it has such a negative and also dismissal connotation, right? When you say attention seeker, right, it kind of feels like, oh, just ignore him. He just wants attention, or she just wants attention. Oh, that famous celebrity, they're just wanting attention. Ignore them, right? And so when I say they just want attention, I do want to make it clear, right? Oh, here comes the explanation I was talking about again. That it's not in a way where it helps me ignore them. Kind of like, don't worry about them. He's just being an attention seeker. But it helps me kind of understand a little bit about that background. Kind of like, okay, So maybe I have to attack this problem in a different manner.
Yeah.
Right? Working with that kid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We always work differently with who we have. And that's why I believe in the whole concept of code switching, right? Where our dialect, our voice, our whole, just aspect of communication changes depending on who we talk to, right? You see me how I talk to my clients. Completely different, right? And I don't think it has to do anything with being fake or even professional, right? It's just whatever responds the best, right? When you talk to a kid, you give it that voice, right? Right? I'll be honest. You talk to a baby. You say, when I talk to my niece, I call her. Hey, I don't say, hey, what's up, Hannah Banana?
Sure.
I say, oh, hey, Hannah.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm patronizing them. It's not because I'm fake around them. No, it's just, that
It's
aspect.
tailored to that person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I like that.
Yeah.
And that whole aspect of them, when someone is a troublemaker, me empathizing with them, right, helps me know how to approach the problem, right? And obviously that kind of relates to the second aspect is has this helped me in any way deal with these troublemakers, and also have I handled with these troublemakers, right? So here's another thing I'm grateful about, right? I think I've had a lot of students that I've worked with who are troublemakers, right? But at least around me, they're not troublemakers. And, one aspect I'm proud of it, right? I'm glad that I've worked with them. They respect me enough. I created certain disciplinary routines where they kind of know the aspect, right? Like, I think you know this around me, about me. I've been tutoring for years, right? And I've had a lot of parents that they had trouble kids. They have this situation where they're like, they need a tutor. They need, and honestly, a lot of the times me tutoring these kids aren't just academic, but it's kind of like counseling, right? It's guidance, right?
Yep.
And around with me, they're very engaged, right? Any topic we work on, they rarely get distracted. They're not cheating. They're not doing anything. And I know this too because, some kids, they have glasses, so you can see reflections if they're ever they're being distracted in any way, right? But they treat me so differently, right? They treat me with a level of respect. Some, they respect me more than their parents. But then that's also a role as an educator, right? I'll be honest, I'm mean to my parents, but I'm not mean to my teacher. So that's one role. And also, it's everybody kind of adapts to that relationship to the people they're working with. Earlier, I was just talking about this whole code switching thing. It's not something I do, it's something everybody does. So, of course, I code switch with you, or when I'm around you, I act very normal, casual. I'll be honest, when I'm with you, I'm more to my real self than I am to my brother, or even with my family, right? I'm very fake around my family. I would say that close, right? But continuing on, we code switch, and you code switch with me, right? You kind of you're not just code switch, but you also anticipate. You get ready. You're like, okay, here's my friend who's adamant. Here's my friend who's loud. You kind of adjust to it, right? If you're a little bit older and you had a hearing aid, you'll probably lower a little bit. Like, all right, I'm gonna go see Derek. But that's what kids also do too. So when they work with me, they already know the routine. They know, one, I'm not okay. Like, there are just certain things that are unacceptable. 200%, right? One thing they're very aware of is, one, I despise, right, someone not attempting, right? They know, like, I tell them, if you want to throw in a guess, you can randomly guess. I can ask you who's the main character of the story and you say 42, I'm okay with that, right? And the reason I force them to do that is because by nature, we logically want to give an answer that's at least kind of close, right?
Right.
And what I do there is I dissect their answer. I say, okay, so why did you give that answer? There's some sort of logic, and then that's how they kind of build, their thought process, and that's how they excel, right? Because they're like, okay, here's why I thought that, and I work around it, right? And maybe that process of dissecting their thoughts is also them, we build that bond that I understand them, right? And maybe they're not as much of a troublemaker because they do feel heard, I just told you that whole aspect of I fight, I kind of give attitude, or not attitude, but I'm a troublemaker because at times I feel unheard, right? At home, I can't talk back, so when I find the opportunity, I do it, right? When I'm loud, I get that attention, I do it. Well, I'm working with these kids, and, I guess all of that things that cause us as troublemakers almost gets eliminated, at least in the situation I'm presented in, right? They don't turn into the perfect kids, like after I work with them, but at least with me, again, I'm very happy that I've never dealt with a troublemaker. There are tons of times where I know a kid can be a troublemaker, right? So that's why I said I don't feel like I've dealt with a troublemaker. I just have a hint, like, I want to be surprised if you're a troublemaker. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, but with me,
It's different.
It's different. And, I've worked with special education, right? I've worked with kids who kind of lack some cognitive capacity to kind of logically think in certain ways, right? Some things they take either more time or they just can't analyze immediately certain aspects. And I'm proud in my own way too. When I was working with them, they responded well with me compared to other educators who've had longer experience. They dealt with certain kids where they're like, hey, be careful with this kid. He does this, this, and this. Don't let go no matter what, right? So, here's a funny story. I find it adorable, right? I worked with this kid who goes buck wild crazy over chocolate, right? The story that I was told was he went in during Halloween, I think it was Halloween, during Halloween, or no, Valentine's Day, that's what it was. He went into the teacher's lounge and ate all of their candy, and no one can stop him because, there's so much physical contact that we can have with a kid, right? We just can't pull them out, right, and say stop eating, right? We just kind of have to sit there and watch in a sense, right? So this kid, he's a little untamed. He's you ever watch Wild Thornberrys?
Yeah, I remember the show.
Yeah, you remember that kid, the
small one.
Yeah, he had the crazy hair.
Yeah.
He was
the Tasmanian devil.
He's the Tasmanian. So this kid was kind of wild in that aspect, right?
Okay.
I've only worked with him for 2.5 months, and within those 2.5 months, I love it. The one rule I was told that every time we walk past the teacher's lounge, I have to directly hold his hand. I have to physically limit him from running into the teacher's lounge because he connected the dots where, hey, that's where all the goodies are, right? And he loves sweets. This kid loves sweets, right? At the end of my, I guess, it was kind of short-lived. I didn't stay with him long. I think it was because it was close to the end of the school year. But at the end of the year, right, I've gone to a point where I no longer had to hold his hand, right, anytime he crossed by. And any moments where someone else was watching after him, because I can't be the only one watching after him, where other people were watching after him, and he ran towards the teacher's lounge when he was under someone else's watch, right? I just called out his name and I say, hey, not okay. And once he heard my voice, he kind of knew that, oh, look at Bruce, he knows my voice too. And I said, hey, sorry, buddy. But once he kind of heard my voice, he knows I'm in the area. He kind of goes back to the routine. Kids are smarter than you think. They kind of follow this routine of this is what happens, this is how it works, right? And that's also another reason why certain kids throw tantrums, right? Is this kind of inconsistency, right? When something doesn't go logically their way. If you hand every kid, right? It's Halloween, you give every single kid, right? A blue lollipop. Every kid gets a blue lollipop. And you give that very last kid a green lollipop. I don't need to tell you what's going to happen, right? Now, does that mean that green lollipop in any way is worse than the blue? No. It's just that inconsistency. And that's the trigger. That's their, like, this is not okay. Everybody got blue but me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that kind of follows that aspect. Do you mind if I bring Bruce in?
What do you mean bring him in?
Oh, just in
bring him inside. Yeah, for sure.
He
All
seems
good.
He seems a.
All right, we're resuming again. So Derek just let his dog back in his house, and he's pouring up some new drinks.
Oh yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So I picked this, or we got this, John and I, as we went to a spot one day, and we were trying out stouts, and the waiter said this is his favorite drink of all time. And that
This
person,
one right here?
yeah, this one right here. And you know, we were just talking about drinks that we both like. So when someone says, "Hey, this is your favorite," and they kind of follow that same palette that you already have, you know, you're bound to have to try it, right?
Yep.
It'd be an insult if you didn't try it.
Do you like it?
When I tried it, it was good. It was good for beer. I want to call it my favorite, but it's also a category of drinks, like stouts, that I don't naturally like. I told you I love sours, you know, sours but even then, if I had a preference for anything, it'd always be bourbon, always. Like beer is only I drink socially, but if I had a personal choice and if I ever drink by myself, always be whiskey, bourbon. Yeah, that's why you see me so passionate about certain drink names, right? And luckily my brother hasn't enlightened me. You know, he knows all the ins and outs. He kind of does his research.
Yeah.
I'm just like a guinea pig in his adventure. He's like, I got this.
Let's try it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's try it. We dissect it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's fun dissecting. It's fun trying to act snooty, like you know how to do your thing. And then,
Yeah, like you know what you're talking about.
yeah, and maybe it's that whole kind of, what's it, that, I forgot the author's name. He's the guy who wrote...
Great Gatsby?
No. The Atomic Habits.
Oh.
You know.
Adam Grant? I don't know the name.
Yeah.
But I know that book.
Yeah, so the whole aspect, or not the whole aspect, but part of the things he talked about was the first thing you got to do is kind of build yourself in that identity, right? So, for example, if you're a smoker and you wanted to quit smoking, kind of like the important step to take is to identify yourself as not a smoker, right? And the reason that's important is now when someone offers you a stogie, right, you decline them and say, I'm not going to smoke because I don't smoke. I'm not a smoker, right? I don't do that. Versus as someone who goes, oh, I'm someone who's trying to not smoke, right? And naturally, when you kind of build yourself that title, you know, you got to be proud of it, and you know, you follow all the aspects that builds that to that title, right? As a non-smoker, as, you know, a bourbon connoisseur, right? In this case. And then the more you play all of these little actions to it, you actually become it, right? At first, we were just, you know, BSing, saying, oh, it has this caramel note, this has this woody note. And then, well, you know, after a while, we have this little book, little mold book that our cousin got us. And we started, you know, taking down all the flavor profiles of these bourbons, right? The first entry is hilarious. Very basic. See, that's all I wrote. Here's my brothers. Here's our cousin. As we kind of move on, now, like, initial palate bursts with fruit wood delight, but quickly fades into a partially enjoyable musk.
These guys writing reviews.
We're taking the day we drink it. We're taking which sip it is, how long we let it sit for. We give it a score. We compare it to the MSRP. But that's part of the fun, right? Is in a sense, you believe in it enough, naturally it'll happen, right? That's the whole idea of what self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
I'm fat, so I'm always gonna be fat, and
Yeah.
that type of aspect. Oh, okay. All right. Now that we're refilled, and we can kind of continue where we left off.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Yeah. Again, touched upon a lot of stuff. We'll return to some of the family stuff later, but I did want to ask about, like, moving on to college. Because it kind of makes sense. You decided to major in math. I want to hear what is your fascination with math? Why do you pick math?
Yeah.
And this is probably a separate question, but maybe if you want to touch upon, like, does it relate to your teaching? Like, do you want to focus on teaching math? Do you want to teach everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, so start with what is appealing to you about math?
This is going to be a simple question.
Okay.
I'm not passionate about math.
Fantastic.
So my goal from the get-go, I think it already started in high school, right, is I wanted to become a teacher.
Okay.
Right? Now, as a teacher, you got to teach a subject, right? Or at least in the higher levels of academics, right? You specialize in a topic. And out of all the topics that, I was accelerated in, I was most advanced in mathematics, right? So if I was going to teach a topic, I felt like it wouldn't sit right with me that I teach a topic that I'm not comfortable in teaching. It's a little selfish if I just wanted to be a teacher and I'm so hung up on that thought that I teach something I'm not good at just for the sake of me wanting to become a teacher.
Yep.
So to prevent that, I chose mathematics, right? And how I got so good at it, like I said, I'm not even passionate about it. It's just everything kind of made sense to me.
Okay.
Thing about math is it's very systematic. I use the term all the time about it's called algebraic thinking, and the reason why it's called algebraic thinking is it's the basis of algebra. Is one step can move on to the next step in a certain level of logic or order. There's no level of guessing, right? This is the effective mindset. You go from here to here because of this, right? That's how proofs are developed. That's how that style level of, higher levels of mathematics goes. A college level math had almost nothing to do with all of the math that I've learned so far, right? Yeah, it was very systematic and logical. When we're writing proofs, we're writing essays. Very, very little calculations. Now there are obviously some parts of mathematics that still uses calculations, like calculus, right? But at least in the program I was in, right? The higher level mathematics were all just general proofs, right? And it almost got a little bit creative of how one goes to the next step, right? And I think that's where I definitely lost more interest in math, if anything, right? At that time. Now I find it fascinating, which is hilarious. I appreciate it more than I'm out.
Yeah.
Right? So I picked math. I was the most proficient at it. And I feel like a lot of people do the same when they're in college. I mean, these kids just finish off with high school. We just talked about how me in high school, I wasn't fully developed. I would say I grew the most in college. So you're having these people kind of pick their, in a sense, direction of their end goal, right? And guess what they're gonna pick? They're gonna pick not what's most suitable for them, but what just seems to be the most exposed to them, right? Whether that exposure has to do with anything related with their parents. You know, a lot of people like to pick a field that's similar to their parents, or even recommended by their parents. You know, engineering, being a lawyer, doctor, you know, like those quote unquote prestigious jobs,
Yep.
right? But yeah, computer science is the big one, this day and age, right? So if you're good at something, that's the other exposure, right? You're so into it. Guess what? All of the classes I took were, you know, all the AP, all the advanced classes were math. So that's my exposure. So I picked math, right? So my choice of math was definitely not something because I'm passionate about. It's not similar to someone who's like passionate about marine biology and then studies in, you know, the field, right? As hands-on, or even, you know, they do their outside studying where it has nothing to do with class. They just want to learn. Let me tell you, this is the extent of how much I care about math. I've never done any independent studying for math on my own, unless it was class related. So if it was nothing if there is no assessment attached to it, I've actually never researched any mathematics individually. Initially, like I've obviously watched some videos of math related stuff, science related stuff for my own peak interest, but it's almost kind of like someone watching a animal documentary, right? You find it interesting, but it's not because it's your passion, right? You're not gonna go out there and be a zoologist or that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Blue Planet's just a good show.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, and touching on further on into college, right? I know you wanted to talk about my experience in college, right? Unless you still kind of want to focus on math.
No, it's okay.
Oh, yeah. I think college is a good experience. You're going to hear this phrase all the time, right? It's where you kind of find yourself, quote unquote. And I think it's because there's a lot less guidance with your parents, you know, when when we went to college. Although we're always almost in our parents' reach, for the day to day, we spend less than 15%, 10% of our lives being with and around our parents. Because even if we don't talk to our parents every day, just the fact that they're within the vicinity changes a certain aspect, right? You know? Yeah. So I got to be a lot more free-spirited, I guess. If you thought I was vocal, like, now, in college, I was just out of this world.
Yeah, you were going crazy?
I want to say going crazy, like party, like, hey. But I was very friendly, you know.
Okay.
Can't get me to shut up, you know.
Yeah.
Always talking, try to make friends with everybody. I'm proud of this, but I felt like I got close with every single floor mate, right? The 45 people there, you know. Everybody knew my name, and for the first time, it wasn't for an infamous reason, like, oh, that's the loud kid or the annoying kid or whatever. But, you know, oh, that's just Derek. He's a silly person.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm okay with that title, right? We had a friendship. I got close with people that other people felt like, oh, yeah, they're distant. They don't want to make friends. I was able to be friends with them too.
Yeah.
Right? Or who knows? Maybe they just tolerated me. But, you know, I only say that because I felt like we had good times together, right? They would want to hang out with me off of their choice, you know. So that's my sign of why they enjoy my company, at least. And yeah, my freshman, sophomore year, it was a highlight of a lot of things I had, you know. Romantically, too, right?
Hey.
I mean, you don't got your parents' guidance, so there's no excuse, right? And again, I think it was also because I was more outgoing. I was a little bit more braver. I could say things that I probably wouldn't have said before. Ideally, not intrusive or offensive, right?
Yep.
But yeah, I got to make a lot of friends. I got to, you know, I got to connect well with a lot of people. And honestly, there are some moments that I've had in college that I would never forget.
Mm.
You know, just like
Core memories.
in a sense, right? Like some things were just fun little notes that I just remember this. I was in UC Santa Cruz, the college I went to. There is there's this bus that kind of takes you around campus. It's a huge campus, right? It's in the forest. So there's this bus specifically just for campus. There's two buses, one for the city that brings you up and down the campus, and there's just we call it a loop bus, as it just goes around in a loop around the campus, right in a circle. So I have to take the loop bus often, and you know, me being an attention seeker and me also being loud, maybe again me having ADHD, you see what I'm doing, I'm just creating all these excuses, right?
Yep.
I like to talk to random people. I like to rant, you know. I spew my stuff. I mean, poor you have to hear me rant every single time we hang out.
Yep. Pretty much.
Yeah. Hey, I love you.
It's alright.
But, you know, during my rants, I talk, you know, I throw in a few jokes. And, you know, from time to time, I get these, you know, I get off the bus and I get a compliment where one random person, not even the person I'm talking to, it's funny enough, they'll say, hey, what you did was really cool. And I'm like, wait, what? What'd I do? I just told you how much I love the show Tom and Jerry. That's not really something, I guess.
Special.
Yeah, special or
Worth noting.
Worth noting, exactly, right? And then they're like, oh no, you just kind of made the bus a little bit more livelier, you know. Some things that they said, hey, you know, I wasn't having the greatest of day, but that day kind of made me a little, or that moment made me feel a little bit better, right? It's a boost. It really is a boost when I hear that.
Yeah.
You know, guess what? Next day I'm gonna be even louder. Of course not, but you know, the one thing that I also have to be aware of, and I still am aware of, is it's nice that some people were a little bit vocal of, you know, their appreciation to my rants or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was also people who didn't enjoy it too.
Of course.
You know, just like how some people are like, I was having a bad day.
The Dougs and the Beccas.
Yeah. They're like, dude, I don't want to hear your shit. I'm not like, I'm having a bad day. You see, they're starting off in the same mindset. I'm having a bad day, but to them they're like, well, I don't want to hear it. They're not wrong too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't. To them, they're not vocal about it because they're like, it's not worth it. You know. So I have to take that into consideration, right? Just because, let's say, two people said, you know, I did the right thing. That doesn't mean they speak for the whole, like bus goers, right? And all the people who comes after too, right? But yeah, college, the academics isn't what I would say people promote. Like when I say people promote, I say a lot of people who go to college, they would say you should go to college not because of, oh, you learned so many useful things, right? But because of that experience I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That I'm by myself, you know, parents aren't here to kind of babysit me.
Yeah.
Or they're not even in the vicinity, right? You can, as corny and cliche, you're going to hear this all the time, but in a sense, you really do find yourself, right? Going to college, this is who I am, this is the person
Develop.
I am. Exactly. Yeah, and, you know, it's also that time frame too, you know, that age where we're also kind of developing who we are. Yeah. This is the point where I'm saying, yeah, here's my brand. Here's my identity.
This is who I am.
Yeah, I'm a recycler, right?
Yep.
That's me.
I'm a good guy.
I'm a good guy. I'm a dog lover, you know. So, yeah, it's almost like you're building a. I know I don't do social media off, so I might be horribly mistaken, but it's almost like you're building a Tinder profile, right? Or Twitter. Yeah, you're just like, oh, who are you? I'm a man. List this down.
Yeah.
I'm a person who's outgoing. I like to travel,
Yeah.
that type of stuff.
So college was a good time for you to figure all those things out.
Yeah, beginning of college for sure. I would say, admittingly, the end of college was a little bit more of, all right, there's some things I got to get done. This is the whole checklist mentality of, all right, we do this, we're kind of, finishing off the tasks that we need to do, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because there is, a time limit on how much you can develop, or maybe I just felt like, okay, I'm done, building my character. I know who I am. So now I could kind of refocus on life, It's that title that kind of drops because now we fit in multiple demographics, right?
Yeah.
During the wedding, you're the groom, you're the bride, and you hold that title. You're like, I'm the groom, I'm the bride. But 2 days after, right, we get back to our lives. Oh, I'm a software engineer at Google, right? I gotta kind of get things done,
Mm-hmm.
So that was me the final year and a half of college. I got a lot more closer to my professors. We're kind of talking a little bit about my future. I'm very grateful. They've definitely spent more time with me and were open their time a lot more with me than what they usually do. Like, poor you, just like how you're trapped with me. Those professors had office hours that ended at 3, and I'll stick with them until 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grateful for it because I know some of the professors at 3 o'clock they're gone.
Yeah.
Some leave at 2:58. I'm out. I don't see anyone. I'm out. Right. But the fact that they're willing to spend that much time, guide me, teach me, it's how can you not be grateful? Right?
Sure.
It's nice.
That's actually perfect. I was gonna ask you about the professors next. Yeah, because I know we've talked about it before. You said that you've always, you've had drinks with your professors. Like this.
Yes,
is how
we would
close.
drink water.
Yeah, exactly. And you could say that for most people, they're probably not even going to office hours. Like, how many people are actually going to office hours, discussing things with their professor? And you have gotten pretty close. At least you're spending a lot of time with them. So I'd be curious to hear, how did that happen? Like, what made you want to connect with these professors? How did you get comfortable with that? Would you agree that most people didn't really talk to the professor?
Yeah.
And yeah, what are some experiences that you've had from interacting in that way?
Mm-hmm. So, part of me, and this starts from even when I was young, I've always kind of was magnetized to an older crowd, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was in 3rd grade, I loved hanging out with the 4th and 5th graders. When I was in middle school and high school, I would hang out with, again, just people older than us. I don't know if you know, but my senior year in high school was actually a little bit, I want to say boring, but empty for me a little bit because all of my friends graduated.
Yep.
Right? Even my best friends right now, they're all 1 year older than me, 2 years older than me, right? So in college, of course you have your peers, right? And age gets a little bit more, for the lack of a better term, kind of meshed in groups rather than numbers, right? So these are people who are 20 to 24. These are people 25 to 28. You see what I mean, right? It's not, oh, you're a freshman, I'm a freshman, that type of stuff. And I guess at that time, everybody within all my peers, right? Even when I was a freshman, it's like you don't look at a 4th year as a senior like you did in high school. Mm-hmm. Everybody was just a student, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, that kind of crowd that's older, the only available one was my professors, right? And I think it's always because we got to talk in a level that I was never able to talk to my peers. You know, when I try to even something as small as a drink, right? I've I like whiskey ever since my brother exposed that to me. He's older than me by 5 years, and I think that's worth noting, because you know, I get used to all of that, all of the activities that age group kind of does, right? And let's say something as small as drinking whiskey was one of them. I can't do that with any of these college students. Anytime I drink whiskey, they just see it as a shot. They just shoot it, and they're like, "Oh, I don't like that drink at all."
Yeah.
You know, I'm over here going like, "Did you just take a shot of scotch?" Right?
Yeah.
That doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
Funny enough, one of my closest college friends, it was a woman who already had kids. She was like late 30s, early 40s by the time I was finished off with college, right? But she was like my best friend, and again, it had to do with that. I was always just attracted to older crowds. So with these professors, I got to talk to them, you know, and maybe it has to do with me being transparent. Maybe it has to be genuine. Maybe I'm just a character. They thought I was a funny monkey riding on a unicycle. So at first they were just like, "Oh yeah, entertaining," and then after a while, they kind of saw me as a person and we talked, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I got close to my professors. Just one, and here's the thing: not all professors I was close with, right? As you stated, not everybody goes to office hours, right? There are some people who don't even show up to class. They only show up on testing
Test
days.
day.
Yeah. And I understand that, because to them, just like how I told you earlier, like my senior year, right? Sometimes it's a task, a chore. And I don't say a chore in a sense of, "Oh, this is horrible to do, but I have to do it." But it's just something I just have to do, right? It has nothing to do with it being horrible. It's just like, hey, I show up, I take the test, I get a grade, I pass, I get my degree. I'm done, right? I don't need to build relationships, right? Yeah, and it has nothing to do with them not wanting to build connections, but they're on a mission. That's the best way I could describe it. They're on a mission.
They're getting the job done.
Yeah, so, you know, if their mission was going to office hours, then obviously they're there, but they're not there to chat, you know?
Right.
They're there to, "Hey, I have this one question. Okay, here's the answer. All right, good, I'm out," you know?
Right.
Me, I was just a bored kid who had nothing more but time, you know? I would say this: when I was in college, I don't know if it's because it just happened to be math, but I felt, you know, I've actually spent more time in high school than I did in college in studies, because in high school you're there like 6-7 hours a day, right? In college I was there, you know, classes only 1 to 2 hours a day, sometimes 3 to 4 hours, but then that's considered a stacked day, right? That's the days where you kind of put classes together, right? And I never had to study that much, right? So imagine what a high school student who naturally spending 40 to 50 hours a week, right, on studious activities, getting jumped into a position where they have, let's say, and this is just me overestimating, 15 hours a week of academic activities, right? And I say academic, not studious, because it's, you know, more academic than you having to study and you having to do anything. So now that discrepancy of 25 plus hours, what do? Right? And I guess I spent my time, well, me being bored, me just liking to talk to people.
Chatting up.
Not knowing how to shut up, yeah. And I got to build a lot of good connections with my professors. Some offering me, you know, situations that they're not supposed to offer me, you know, like certain programs. They're like, "Yeah, this isn't meant for, you know, this year. It's only meant for like graduate students, right? But I'll write something, or I'll let you in, or, you know, whatever." And I'm like, you know, you feel honored in a sense. So because of that, you naturally build a respect to them. You build an appreciation that builds a stronger connection. I'm visiting them more.
Yep.
You know, they see more FaceTime, right?
Yep.
This poor professor, man, I loved him. He had this expensive Japanese chalk, right? Now, I'll tell you this. Chalk is chalk, right? And I hated chalk. In math, for some reason, I don't know which person universally decided it, but they don't like whiteboards. They like writing with chalk, or at least in UC Santa Cruz, right? Everything's in chalk, right? Chalk is dusty, it's messy, it cracks, it's just horrible,
Yep.
right? But this professor had this Japanese wax chalk, and when you use it, it is buttery smooth. And when you're so used to riding a bicycle with a broken wheel, when you finally ride a normal bicycle, you go, oh man, I'm not even a bike rider, but this, you just want to stay on,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
To just because you've, I don't want to even say suffered, but you kind of dealt with how it is, how it's not supposed to be. And so he had this expensive chalk, right?
Yeah.
Those chalks are like $3 or $4 each. It doesn't sound like much, but remember, that's one piece of chalk.
Yeah.
So in a box of 20, right, that's $80 to $100, right? And depending on, you know, whatever you get. I know I said it's 3 to 4, but some goes as high as $6, and then, you know, they give you a little sale because you're buying, you know, multiple. But beyond that, this professor that I no longer even had his class, I wasn't even in. I had his class twice. You heard me say it. I go in, I take his chalk, and I leave. And that was our relationship. I just go in and I take his expensive chalk. You know, it was rare too. He even told me, I can't buy this chalk anymore. I can't find it anywhere. It's not even a money thing, you know. And all I did with him was I said, oh, hey, what's up? How you doing? I'm going to take this chalk and I'm going to leave. I know you're in office hours. You teach them kids. And then, like, every single time I do that, he just laughs it off. He's like, yeah, get out of here. Take my chalk and get out of here.
Really?
Yeah. You know, and that's something serious. Like, let me tell you this. One cultural thing as a mathematician that you'll find out is they are very sensitive with their chalk. Because when I used that chalk with other professors, they were freaking out like, where'd you get this? And I said, I got it from a friend or whatever. And, you know, someone would say, can I keep this? And I go, yeah, sure. You know, then it's a culture. Chalk. It's a culture. It's funny. You would never expect, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was it. Some of them were even stingy. You know, I used their chalk, right? And they're like, hey, don't use that one. Use the other one. And then, you know, I'm using the Crayola, you know, BS chalk that breaks every, you know, quarter second. So the fact that he did that for me, again, made me feel very special. I actually bought him a gift set because, you know, I feel so bad about this. I've told people I've used more than $100 worth of chalk with him, which is a stupid expense once you think about it. $100 worth of chalk, right? And it's kind of stupid. But yeah, I build that connection, met good people. They're adults. They teach me some life lessons, you know. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun. And one thing I will admit is, although I do strive to continue on further education, you know, PhD, that type of stuff, I know for a fact I would never relive that experience. And I think it's also because of the demographic. You know, people getting their bachelor's degree, you know, to them, it's just another step in life, right?
It's not so serious.
Rather than a graduate, again, it's that whole mentality of I'm on a mission, right? I'm here, I'm out, right? I'm not here to make friends. It really is as simple as that. Not to say they can't be friendly, but, you know, that's the culture.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. I do want to ask a little bit about math. It's so interesting that you actually say that you're not interested in it. I didn't really know that. But it's kind of related to the next question. That's pretty much, what is your advice for people to learn math? Because we know that it can be a hard topic for certain people or many people, maybe. In my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, but for somebody to major in math, that means you've completed a variety of coursework, subject matters in math. So you got to be pretty good at it, right? To make it through a degree.
Can you talk more about that? Because I feel like that's everything, right? If you're good at, for you to be an astronomist, you gotta beat some level of physics.
Yeah, of course. But I think it's interesting to me, at least, because math is like one of those subjects that if you were to rank the subject matters, I think math is probably one up there in terms of difficulty / rigor. Right? Math and like physics and the harder sciences, chemistry, biology, engineering.
Yeah.
It takes, let's just say a smart person to learn those things.
Yeah, it takes a certain
mind, let's say, a brain capacity, cognitive capacity.
Yeah, a level of intelligence.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess my question is, for people that maybe struggle with math, do you have advice on how they can get better at it, how they can learn, how they can get through how they can get interested and engaged, maybe for the person that is like, I'm not that good, but I also don't really care. Like, why does this matter? What do you say to that kind of person to say, this is how you can make math better and learn it?
This is a question I probably should have been prepared about. Like, I should already had an answer, especially as an educator.
Well, it's better.
Specialized
I think it's
in
better
math.
that you don't, because now you have to think of one.
Yeah. So, to me, I don't know if you would enjoy this answer, but I guess this answer falls for all categories, right? Because part of me tutoring, I've actually taught, other subjects too. Right, other levels of sciences, history, English too.
Yep.
So I teach all of that, right? And the best advice I would say to just give to someone who's struggling in any certain subject, actually isn't like a tip or a trick. It's no life hack, right? But it's just to take things slow and analyze the situation more. Now, this obviously differs between subject to subject, right? Math, again, being something I already defined as very systematical, right? I always start off with saying, okay, so what do you know, right? What don't we know? And we kind of start off with a kind of definition aspect where we're just defining things, right? And then once you have that set, right, I just dig a little bit deeper and go, okay, so what do we know about that at least, right? Okay, here's quadratic equations. What do you know about quadratics, right? And to someone, their first answer, I do got to interrogate them a little bit. They're like, well, I know nothing about it. And I go, oh, well, that's not true, right? The first thing you know about quadratics is you use variables. And they're like, well, yeah, duh, I know that. And I go, so you do know something. And I just kind of pick at their brain a little bit more often. And then at like 20 minutes in, I just kind of have them restate everything they know out loud, right? And after them just mentioning it out loud, they actually grasp the concept instantly. They go, oh, that's why, and they kind of connect the dots. So to someone struggling with the subject, I always feel like what they do is they know they're bad at the subject. And it was that kind of self-fulfilling prophecy we touched upon earlier, right? Where you're so focused on that, you kind of block out on anything else that is covered. You kind of forget everything you do already know, right? You're so focused on one aspect of, I don't know this, that you kind of forget about, well, what do you know about this?
Yeah.
Right? And when you do that, especially on a topic that requires a lot of analysis, which is literally just comprehending and combining all of the information you know, you're creating yourself that blockade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hence why I say take things slow.
Yeah,
Kind of
step by
just
step.
not even step by step, but kind of reflect on things that you know. And part of taking things slow is we live in such a mindset where we're always moving forward. We're always moving forward. You know, there's even idioms and phrases and all of that where it's just saying always look forward, right? Don't look at the past, that type of stuff, you know. But we also kind of forget that, you know, sometimes we have to take a step back to see the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's part of taking things slow, right? When you reflect on asking what do you know, then you move on to, okay, so now I need to fill in those gaps, right? You're doing a social studies test, right?
Yeah.
It's all memory. It's all memory. And you go through all of these definitions, you go through all of these events, and you go, okay, what do I know? What don't I know? And the best way to figure out what you don't know is to assess yourself.
Try it.
Try
to
it. Do
answer
it.
the questions.
Answer the question. Take these practice tests.
Yeah.
I would honestly say doing flashcards are less effective than doing fake practice tests and all of that. Now, obviously, kids don't have that resource where they can do these fake practice tests.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know what's one thing I feel people don't use often is they don't fully extend their resources, right? You got to exhaust everything you have. How often do you read a textbook, right, for the class that you're taking? How often did you do all these end of the chapter assessment? How often did you do the final chapter unit? Here's the little break. Sometimes if you read 2 pages, there's a little question on the side and it says, test what you know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And because the teacher don't assign it,
You're not gonna do it.
you're not going to do it. You know? There is one thing that I kind of want to talk about a little bit is you said it's surprising you were able to do math for someone who's not passionate about it because it kind of relies on a level of, you know, intelligence, right? There's maybe only a certain amount of people who can do it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I could see how you draw to that conclusion because even when I was in the field, right? And I won't even say I'm even 20% in the field. It goes so much deeper. It's
Sure.
awesome,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I say it's awesome now, but at the time, you know, it's whatever.
Yeah.
I saw my peers who truly struggled with the topic, right? They just, you know, it just didn't click in their head, right? And I think it's mainly because how much exposure they have to that self-assessment. One of the smartest guys I've ever met into the topic, this guy, I call him crazy, but obviously it's admirable. When he was in high school, he had like an hour and a half of free time of going to and from school, right? He had to travel, right? It wasn't his parents that dropped him off. He had to travel. Now, obviously, an hour and a half is quite some time, right? You get bored,
Yeah.
right? So what this kid, call him a kid, only because it was at that time, but, you know, he's same age as me. He read these math textbooks. He just read it for fun. And he did all of these questions by himself just for fun, you know? And he had that mindset, that whole identity thing we're talking about of, you know, I'm a mathematician, I want to do it, right? I do this because I'm a mathematician. And you know, to the people who are struggling with the topic, when you kind of identify yourself as, I'm just someone who's bad at history, I'm just someone who's bad at math, right? You
Yeah.
kind of lock yourself in that box, right? And this person who just read, you know, math every day, textbooks, high school textbooks. It's not like he's reading college level stuff, right? When he entered college, he was able to do topics, classes, courses that he never even took before. This person was helping me in a subject that he never took. We're working on multivariable calculus, which wasn't taught in high school, at least in our high school, right?
Yeah.
He never took this class. And when I was doing it, he saw me, he helped me out. And I asked him, wait, you're not in my class. He's like, no, I'm not. I haven't taken it yet. And he was able to teach me. That's just to show you how much power. And, you know, these textbooks, at least for the math textbooks, right? They're extremely well written. You know, one of my years in college, you know, I told you how much free time I had in college. I went back and looked and reread all of these kind of high school textbooks, and I didn't realize how well, like, written they are. There are times where I couldn't even explain it better myself. They explained it perfectly, right? But at the time, as a kid, when you read it, it's all just, you know, bunch of hieroglyphics, right? Some things kind of seem familiar, right? But,
well, that's how I felt in college, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but again, that whole mindset really is extremely powerful, right? So a lot of the kids I work with, like I said, it's not really academics that I'm really covering, right? I'm not connecting the dots for them and like analytically, like, oh, here's the reason why, right? I just kind of work with them on the topic. All right, what do we know? Here's how we do it. And even questions that I wasn't even prepared for, right?
Yeah.
Kid just asked me, all right, I'm working with some trigonometric proofs, right? I have sine squared, cosine squared minus 2 cosine squared over. And they're like, how do you do this? How do you simplify it, right?
Yeah.
And I look at it, I go, oh my God, this looks so crazy. I don't even think I could solve it, right? Now, I can't tell them that. I don't want to demotivate them. And all I do is I go, okay, so here are the definitions that I know of, right? You know them too. Let's write them down. And once we kind of see it all out, I write down all of my notes all in front of us. It clicks. And we go, oh, that's how you solve it. And this is within the span of 20 seconds. They don't even know that I didn't even know how to solve the problem from the get-go. But all I had to do was just write out what I know, and it connects the dots. You know, you'll be surprised how much we need to illustrate our ideas from time to time. You know, our thinking capacity can only handle so much, right? If I was to ask you what's 562 times 72.9, you can't do that to me. You can't give me the answer right now. But I'm sure if I give you a pencil and paper, you're able to do it with me. It wasn't the action of, right? It's not that you don't know how to multiply. It's just mentally you only can handle so much.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. All subjects. Science too.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's why when you see people who are passionate about the topic, they naturally and inherently are good with it too. Right? They do all of these actions that help you become better. Things connect more because you want it to connect more.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And what sucks is sometimes people who don't get it, you know, you tell them this, and depending on how stubborn they may be, they're like, dude, I've tried, it's not like that, it's not like that. That's them being stubborn. That's me. That was me when I was stubborn, right? You block it out. You don't even give it the opportunity of going
to try it,
to
feel it,
to take that step back. They're so hung up on moving forward that they forget that, you know, there's a phrase of it for a reason. You need to take a step back to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It really is true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really something. I think it's relevant just because, again, a lot of people struggle with math. It's a key topic, obviously. It's important to someone's education, but a lot of people are quickly turned off by it, either because they don't know or they get intimidated. They don't want to try. So that's good to hear. Switching gears just a little bit, it came up a little bit earlier, but want to dive in deeper. We've talked about it quite a lot, just in our own conversations. But I'm curious to hear, what role does family play in your life?
Oh man.
Yeah. What are some principles that guide you? How has family impacted who you are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What is your relationship to it?
Yeah. Now I want to start this off, not just to people hearing it, but to you too.
Sure.
My thoughts in no way is my teachings of it, because I feel like even I haven't found that out yet.
Okay. Yeah.
And this situation is it's almost ambivalent. It's so conflicted, right? Because we were raised in this whole family comes first. The reason why I kind of prospect that statement before diving deep into it is I got some negative feedback.
Yeah, you got some shit to say.
Not even shit to say. I don't got too much shit to say.
Okay.
I don't think my family hasn't treated me that bad. I feel like I was a lucky one in my family.
Right.
Like out of all the 5 kids, I was the one who was less involved with most of the drama.
Okay.
Right. As of right now, I played the biggest role with, some parts of my family. Right. But that's as of the past 5 years compared to my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think this would be really awesome. There's a few psychologists that were talking about how impactful family can be, and people undermine it so much. Mm-hmm. People don't understand how much a role family plays on a household and on your development, on who you are as a character. Mm-hmm. It's so crazy, right? Having certain figures, having certain culture being set in place, And as for me, someone who definitely hasn't figured out family yet. I mean, my family issues. I complain to you all the time, and the fact that I'm complaining to you means I haven't figured it out myself, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I naturally kind of grew on is family is your first exposure, right? Mm-hmm. We talked about how we develop friendship through one exposure and being in common, right? Oh, you're good at math. Oh, you're Vietnamese. Oh, this, right? You're also another good-looking Asian. Nice. Okay. That's family, right? What's common is you guys are family.
Yeah.
Right? We share the same mother.
Auntie,
we share
uncle, grandma.
So yeah, there's only a kind of like +2, +3 bonus they already have.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, our Uncle Willie, he's so wild, right? Yeah, but yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So that's the case. We're very exposed to them, right? We're also taught in a certain way where family comes first. You could correct me on it. That whole blood is thicker than water or whatever the statement is. Yeah. But again, we're kind of drawn and indoctrinated where we have to kind of promote how much a priority family has to take. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's a dangerous thought, right? Yeah. Not the fact that that statement is wrong, right? In no way do I see that statement unfounded, right? I want to get that straight.
Sure.
But I think it's dangerous when you prioritize, I guess, not just people or individuals, but when you prioritize something that goes against all of your instincts not to. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If there's a toxic person in your life, right, your instincts is, I'm just going to go away with him. Whether your instincts is just as simple as, he's annoying, I don't like his voice, I'm going to go away from him. Yeah. Right? That could be a less of a reflected thought on someone, right? Yeah. But when that same person is now your cousin, right? To you kind of tolerate it, where you're like, it's only Thanksgiving, it's only him, I only see him from time to time, and that higher tolerance is dangerous in a sense that you are willing to do things that you wouldn't do normally. Yeah. Right? And it's scary that it can lead you to a faulty direction. Yeah. Right? I'm currently in a position where I've I don't want to say I've been dragged down by my family because it's entirely my fault. I've been warned, funny enough, by family members, that this path that you're going, you're not doing any favors. You're getting dragged down yourself too. But there's just that morality inside of me that I gotta take care of my family. He's blood, she's blood. Yeah, and as someone in that position, I at least can stand by the statement of you don't have to love them more just because they have that relation. You don't have to love them more because they're your aunt. You don't have to love them more, even I would go as far as because they're your parents. Now, you still gotta appreciate the general aspects. There have been moments where
they brought you to this life.
Well, not just that. I feel like that's just a guilt. That's that whole, hey, people are starving in Africa, you finish your food, right?
Okay.
I don't want to use that as a weapon, because that's how they use it as a weapon, right?
Okay.
You wouldn't have even been here without
me.
But, I may only have that mindset because I'm an accident. So I have that kind of reverse Uno card where I'm like, no. I'm not here because of you guys. I'm here because you guys were just lazy to get that, Durex. It just happens to be not on sale that day, so Dad was too cheap to get it, right? But jokes aside, yeah. You appreciate that they still did what they did. And that's why I want to make this statement, because not everybody has been in the opportunity that we have been. I think I live in a normal family. One of my family members have actually noted me, she's a psychologist, right? She's straight up saying, no, by book definition, we were living in a dysfunctional family. I don't believe that. Right,
okay.
But that's me being in denial, right? But I'm still grateful on the things that happened to me, because there are situations where kids don't have that same opportunity. They don't have that mom and dad figure. Not to say of course I didn't have that, but I'm still lucky I had a mom, right, who took care of me. I'm lucky where as a baby, when I cried, I got the milk, I got what I wanted. I got to be picked up.
Can we pause? I gotta pee.
Oh,
we're gonna
sure.
pause real quick. All right, fantastic. Here we go. We're back from the restroom break. We were talking about family, or at least you were sharing your thoughts on family.
Yeah.
Right before. I think you probably got through most of it, right?
Yeah, I think when it comes to dealing with families, I don't have much vision with that. I myself haven't truly mastered it yet, or
still figuring it out.
Yeah, I haven't reached a state where I'm comfortable, where I can say, oh, here's a kind of right direction to even start, right? I mean,
if you had to though, maybe this is why I brought the question up. Like, given your situation, what I know, and what I know from my own personal experience too, and what I've heard from other people, like, family can be tough. Like you said, we grow up with this idea, and it's probably common across many cultures, but it's like family first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you said that it can lead to a dangerous path, let's say.
Yeah.
Right? Where that goes a little bit too far, where you tolerate a person that's actually quite harmful or manipulative or blah, blah, blah. Whatever. And I've felt that too. It's like, well, if this is a bad person doing bad things or something along those lines, do I just tolerate it just because they're a family? Or do I call them out and talk to them about it? So family altogether is a difficult topic.
Yeah.
At least it can be once you get past the surface level. Oh yeah, family first. Anybody can say that.
Yeah, I think we reached to the state where, because of our experience, we kind of subscribe to the thought of, just because they're family doesn't mean you have to do everything for them, right? Now, I don't find any harm, of course, in family being, like I said, it's that start of something, like we have something in common, like if it helps you to build that relationship, that's perfectly fine, nothing's wrong with that. As for the whole like manipulation part, right, the whole that aspect, that I think we also have to be mindful, like it's our duty to kind of mention. I don't think that's a family thing. I think that's just a card, like a guilt thing, right? And this can be applied to anyone, right? Where someone's been great to you, nice to you in the past, and then they changed, and you yourself trying to be as appreciative and to try to show gratitude, right? You kind of go above and beyond to do these, whether you want to call them favors, and I say favors because they're not interaction, right? It's not you going out and eat with them. It's favors, like, oh, I need you to pick me up this, or again,
Yep.
kind of like some sort of errand in a sense. Yeah, that happens not because of the family card, but I think that has to do with just people are generally going to be manipulative. We adaptively, we are taught to kind of play with the cards we're dealt with, and if the cards we're dealt with is, hey, I raised you, right? I was the reason, you got food on the table, not because the identity of I'm your mom, right? Because an auntie can play this card too, right? If one of your aunts or uncles raised you, right? Your parents didn't raise you, but they could play this card too, right? So it's just one thing just to be careful of, right?
Right.
If you're helping them out, it's probably you should do it because they deserve it, not because of their title,
Obligation.
Or again, like you remember I told you, like I was raised in a culture where adults can do no wrong, right? Adults are not just like, oh, they're wise, they can teach you things, but they're never in the wrong. And as a kid, you're kind of built on that aspect, right? Even that's what I'm saying, like as a kid, I've kind of had this whole title, if you're an adult you can't do anything wrong. But no, there are bad people, right? And they're not looking out for the best of you, and nothing's wrong with looking out for yourself, right? But it becomes a little bit more malicious when they're even willing to sacrifice others for their gain. You being selfish is inherently not wrong, and I feel bad that it's kind of looked down upon, right? And I find it comedic that the people who kind of preach that are usually the more selfish people too. Funny enough, right? Like, oh, don't be selfish, right? Again, usually, not all, but usually the people who kind of say that are the ones you got to be careful of, like, are inherently selfish.
Yeah.
But we just gotta just not focus on our traditions as much. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Whether the tradition is for us to believe that you do your mom, everything for your mom, and that type of stuff. And I feel so left out because there are times where I see people so passionate about how, they do everything for their mom, right? A little bit, I do feel like it's a mixture of, they're just saying that. They really want to do everything there for their mom. I know you, right? We were just kicking it last week. I see
Yeah.
Jokes aside, but yeah, that's another example of how that whole family is everything, right? When you see those type of exposures, right, where as men, right, a girl would like the idea of a family man, right? Kind of like, oh, you love and take care of your mom. That's so nice, right? And funny enough, I haven't gotten the same promotion. Or I would say the same compliments as when I do the same thing for my dad. That's just something worth noting, right? But either way, just be careful with sticking to your mindset. A certain, tradition, like I said, a certain aspect. And it's difficult because we've talked about how we're raised on believing our instincts, we're raised on, adapting. Here's a way, we've kind of categorized certain thoughts, right?
Yep.
And we kind of follow that certain thoughts, and you know that in itself can build contentness, comfortability, you not wanting change. You know, that can be dangerous in more than one ways. And I'm not just talking about relationship with individuals, but you know, aspirations, future goals. You know,
Yeah.
that type of aspects too,
Yeah.
right?
That's interesting. Would you be able to describe that by saying like keep an open mind, pretty much? Like don't be so stuck on
Yeah.
certain principles, values that you may have been brought up on. Like keep an
Yeah.
open mind, be flexible. Would you say that?
Yeah, keep an open mind, but I do want to put a little asterisk on it, right? So of course, it's always worth noting keep an open mind, but just like, you know, a judge dealing with a case, not everything can be black and white. You know, we can't just say, oh, you know, benefit of the doubt, that type of stuff. I do believe there are also benefits to trusting your instincts, to believing, you know, what you naturally believe in, right? Kind of like if I see, you know, if I'm in a bad part of town and I see someone, you know, suspicious, I'm not going to go and judge people and say, oh, why don't you keep an open mind? That could be your new best friend.
Right.
You know, there's something in your body telling you, saying that, you know, this person could be dangerous, right? Honestly. And you know what's why I wanted to emphasize, you know, even me saying, you know, let's put an asterisk on it, because that's another thing that is being promoted in social media, right? The whole don't judge a book by its cover, right? You know, and the relation with that is, oh, I kept an open mind, and you know, I hung out with this suspicious guy and he became my best friend. You know, it's a wholesome story and all of that. But it doesn't always turn out like that.
Yeah.
You know, I've read stories and it's just so heartbreaking, right? There's a woman, right, who her mother was killed by a certain individual, right? And she forgave the killer of her mother, right? And actually invited, once this guy was finished with his incarceration, which surprised me because I always felt like murder is like you're set for life, right? Or maybe this happened before he was fully incarcerated. Whatever the case is, she invited him, being aware that he killed her mom, over, and then he killed her too. The person who invited someone over. So you see that whole idea of, oh, keep an open mind, maybe he can change, you know, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Again, there's pros and cons to both.
Yep.
You know, just like depending on how you play the situation, there's pros to even saying being stubborn. You know, you due to you being stubborn, you're a little bit more vocal. You gotta kind of got things across, right? Things were said that needed to be said, right? And other times, you know, being stubborn obviously can, you know, be a drawback too, right? But yeah, you know, we experience everything every day, and then, you know, that's where we always got to apply to our past experience to help our judgments, right? There's always a possibility of being wrong.
Yep.
Right? But it doesn't change the fact to my vision, right, of saying, you know, don't just be stuck on one thing, right? I think that is fair to say.
Yep.
Right? You can have that as a starting point, as your guidance, right? Kind of like, oh, what's for dinner? And you want to pick some place that you enjoy, you enjoy, right? Wiener Schnitzel, the greatest of all time. I enjoy that place, right? And I wish every day I can try something new. But there's something nice about having a safe bet.
Yep.
You know, from time to time I will try something new, and from time to time, you know, I don't want to regret.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Try this place, hate it, you know. That whole event of itself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, one thing I could always say is at least in that experience, you've learned, right? You try a bad place, right?
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up on it. Just go, now I know.
It was an experience.
Yeah, it was an experience. Now I know never to trust, Chinese food cooked in the back alley where I'm hearing barking.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Stay away.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so many things that come to mind. First, to kind of wrap up on the topic of family, we could have went a little bit deeper, honestly.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, we could have went a little bit deeper, but we're 2 hours and 20 minutes in. And it's so crazy. Let me just mention real quick. Derek, when I talked to him on the phone the other day, he said he was preparing for 30 minutes. This guy was like, oh yeah, we will record for like 30 minutes and then we'll go make dinner or go eat dinner. And I was like, bro.
I think that's me definitely romanticizing the idea of us hanging out, of course.
Sure. Yeah. But anyways, I told him, I was like, bro, you prepare for like 2 to 3 hours at least. And it's interesting because we probably got through half of like the things that I had planned for, and I could ask him so many other things. But we'll wrap up here. Yeah, it's late in the night. He said he's going to make some wings, so I want to eat some wings. But let's just fire off a couple questions before we wrap this up. Like, let's try to speed round these, okay? So you don't get to answer for a heck of a lot. The first one. Are you going to invest in Bitcoin at any point in the next year to 2 years? Yes or no? And why?
Probably not.
Okay.
I will follow it because I always find it interesting.
Okay.
And as of why, I feel like this is a fair answer. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin itself. It just has to do with the situation I'm in where can I invest in anything?
Circumstances.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Can I adapt the question to say if your circumstances were better, would you? If you had the money to spare, if you were like, okay, I'm ready to invest. I got $1,000 I can invest. I can put it into a real estate thing. I can buy bonds. I can buy stocks. I can buy ETFs. I can buy gold.
I can buy gold.
Okay,
Oh,
all right. Like, I can buy a small piece of real estate. Blah blah blah. Bitcoin. Are you investing in Bitcoin? Yes or no?
Okay, so.
Be honest.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
And make it quick.
Yeah. I'm not well informed about a lot of situation. I would say probably not, due to the reason that if I was to ever invest, I would take advice to one of my close friends who's very strong in his field of finances. And from the little I know of him, he doesn't see the strengths in Bitcoin yet. And that doesn't mean his answer is this is the way, but I have to follow what he is. Gotta show some humility of this is something I know about, and you know more about it than me, but then that's where you draw that confidence. Someone who's ill-informed, I just gotta go with, well, this guy knows what he's doing, do what he says, so I listen to him, right? And since he hasn't said anything positive,
Okay. All right. Would you listen to me? Do you listen to me when I speak on Bitcoin?
Of course I listen to you, but he has a stronger background than you. It has to do with merit a little bit, right?
Yeah.
You can teach me one way, but if a professor taught me another way, I hope you don't take any offense to me taking his side over, whatever it may be.
Fair enough. All right, next one. What gives you hope? Let's start with personally. For your own life, you're a late 20s guy. What gives you hope for your life? What do you look forward to?
What do I look forward to? That's an easy question, right? I look forward to good experiences, right? And I know it seems like a basic answer, but when I mean good experience, I'm just talking about food, eating.
Good steak, good sushi.
Dude, Flavor Town, right? We got to be the kings of Flavor Town, right? So we look forward
curry.
to that. Good curry.
Good ramen noodles.
Damn, look, you're over here listing your favorite, your cuisines.
Namping.
Yeah, so it's always something to look forward to. It's something I think almost everybody can agree that people love good food.
Sure.
I swear to God, maybe this is a gross statement to say, but hey, you can even be emo, but you would still love good food. I'm sorry.
Right, you gotta eat.
You
And
hate-
you gonna be like, damn, this shit hitting.
Yeah, you can hate life, but then when you eat, when you eat an extra flaming bag of hot Cheetos, extra powder,
Life is good.
Life is good. That's my favorite phrase, of all time. Anytime something good happens, I'm petting my dog. He's chilling with me. I gotta say, life is good.
Life is good.
So yeah, that good experience. I mean, as a teacher, right, or as an educator, I should probably say for me to leave a legacy, right? But I guess the real reason, the more genuine reason, is just like
Yeah.
have a good time.
Sure.
Right?
Get the most out of this.
Hell yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, I got two more. One is, what gives you hope for the world? We live in a time where things are dicey, spicy, controversial, blah blah blah, whatever you want to fill in the blank with.
Yeah,
It's a weird time for the world.
Yeah.
A lot of things going on, a lot of issues. But what gives you hope? What gives you hope for a better future, better tomorrow?
This may be very grim, but
I know.
I
Bad setup, but hey, I try to keep it real.
Yeah. I don't really care for hope.
Okay.
Like, and what I mean by that is, I'm not looking to always change the world all the time.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes I just care about making the people around me have a more fun experience.
Your local. Experience.
My local surroundings. I'm sorry, but
Your sphere.
I don't care if my action affects someone in but fuck Mongolia to have a better life, right? I mean, if it does, it doesn't harm me. Of course, I don't mind, but
sure.
That's not what I'm striving for.
Okay.
I don't have too much hope for it, but let me answer with maybe a question that kind of holds parallel to it.
Sure.
Is, do you have any hope for humanity, right? Like that kind of aspect.
Okay.
And to my essence, I feel like that question never fits right with me. And I know it sucks because I'm not answering it properly, like the cookie cutter answer.
It's all right. It's better that way.
Yeah. So I never felt like there was need a hope to humanity, because humanity has always had its good and bads. There are crazy evil. There are malicious people. And there are some people who aren't malicious, but they're just not neurotically developed. They got some click in their brain that, in a sense, sociopaths. We try to use the term sociopaths as someone who's crazy, but then there's some people who's like, dude, I just like emotion. They don't say the dude part, but they're just like, that's how they be.
Wired differently.
They're wired differently. And this is my outlook on it. The more negative and toxic people there are, all that type of stuff, that just makes me appreciate, and dude, I advertise this thought process all the time. The more I hate someone, or the more I like, man, I really don't like this family members, makes me appreciate the people who I do enjoy often, right? The people I got to pick, you're one of my friends, I appreciate you more. Like, man, this guy is always, making time, or, he's always setting something up, right? And I appreciate you much more because of that, because not everybody's like that, right?
Yeah.
If it was common, I won't really want to have appreciated. So, same thing. I love the people around me that much more because of the bullshit that people can, pull and be, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I actually forgot the last question that I had.
Do you know what direction it was going to? Same aspect?
No, I can't remember.
Huh?
Yeah, listening to you talk, yeah, I lost it. But it's all good. I think that's a good place to wrap up. Interestingly enough, 2.5 hours, man. Believe it or not. But again, like I said, we didn't even get through half. We could have went deeper on a whole bunch of different things. The college part, the family part, the teaching part. Like, I didn't even ask you about, like, what kind of teacher you want to be. You know what? Let's do that. That'll be our last question. Just give me a speed answer of what kind of teacher you want to be. Tell me how the kids view you, how you run your classroom, what kind of tests you give them, blah, blah, blah.
God damn.
Let's do it.
This is something the few things I am passionate about, so it hurts giving a quick question.
I know. Well, this is going to lead into the next one.
Yeah,
Eventually, Derek will be back on, and we're going to dive deeper into the education piece. Because, we only touched the surface.
Yeah. So
yeah, what kind of teacher are you going to be?
I ideally this is what most people strive for, is effective, right? I want to
Okay.
be an effective teacher. I've already said that I don't want to be, or I don't care for it if I am the cool teacher or not. If I am, that's great, but you know, that's not my priority, right? I'm okay with being a mean teacher as long as, you know, 10 years later you're like, wow, I
I
hated
remember that.
I hated that guy, but you know, he was the reason why I started being a little bit more organized. I started, you know,
Caring.
I started, well, not even caring, but just like I started not procrastinating. I started having to turn in my homework on time. You know, I've definitely thought about systems of, should I accept late homework or not? Right? Should I give extra credit? Should I do all of this? And I think that it's okay, and I love making this joke, is it's okay if I'm not the main character. It's okay if I'm not the fun teacher. I'm not their favorite teacher or whatever it may be.
Yep.
As long as they take one, you know,
One thing away.
one thing away that benefits them. Like I said, being more organized. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
You know, you being a little bit, your habits developing is more than good enough for me, right? Not like, oh, I'm a master at geometry now ever since I took his class, right? Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, I do remember the last question.
Oh, nice.
And I should just quickly acknowledge, give props to. Are you familiar with Lex Friedman? Have we ever talked about him?
We never talked about him.
We've never talked about him.
But
do you know who he is?
Not that I recall. Maybe if you bring up.
Okay, so he's he's a podcaster, but his background is in artificial intelligence.
Oh.
So he's a teacher of artificial intelligence and like related topics at MIT.
Okay, so I was about to say it has to be on a college level.
Yeah. But he has a podcast, very well known. Okay. Anyways, you should check him out because he has a lot of cool people on there. Science, technology, philosophy, blah blah blah. And I listen to him a lot. But anyways, he always asks his guests towards the end of the conversation, "What advice do you have for young people?" So I'm going to borrow one of his questions here and say, what advice do you have for young people that are in high school? Let's even go a step further, middle school, college, right? Like, this is a pivotal time period in their life. It's a weird time in the world where it's TikTok, it's all kinds of things, right?
So much
going on with
exposure,
young people, right? They're seeing everything. What advice do you have for them to find their way in this world?
Find their way. Finding meaning.
What advice do you give to the young people? And again, this is a quick answer.
Yeah, dude, that's rough.
Whatever you got off the top.
Off the top. Okay.
Let's hear it.
So, the joking side of me want to say get a dog.
Okay.
You know, 'cause I love dogs, right? That's just me being.
That's
silly.
funny. We didn't even talk about Bruce. See, we could have talked about Bruce for like an hour.
Oh, you know,
Shout out to Bruce, man. Shout out to Bruce.
You're funny. That dog is the love of my life. I could talk to him about 8 hours.
There you go. There you go.
The advice that I guess, and it's kind of funny because I don't think this advice is going to hit right away. It's one of those advice that it kind of only makes sense a little bit after, which maybe it makes it less effective, right? But is to kind of understand you're not put in this world to please others. And it really is as simple as that. You know, when I mean please others, I'm talking about either pleasing your family members, pleasing your friends, you know. You don't have a duty to entertain others. You know, and I don't mean entertain like just make them laugh or make them have a good time, but you know, the whole saying, oh, humor me, right? Like a jester, right? That's not your job, right? Now, that's not a free pass for you to be a dick, right? You to be, you know, mean and malicious or, you know, in any other way, but yeah, that's not your job, nor is it anybody's job, you know? The only person who can make someone happy is they themselves. So don't feel like it's your job to always please others, because that's where it all kind of molds who you are. And for the most part, I can't say all the time, it usually molds them in a negative way, right? So 95% of people can compliment me on this, but the other 5% might, you know, say, hey, no.
Right.
It benefited me, but, you know, Yeah, if people pleaser, that type of stuff.
Yeah, stay
peop-
away from it.
Yeah, no, people like it. Of course, I enjoy it. You know,
Sure.
my friends who spoil me,
Yep.
right? I appreciate.
You want to be
them.
liked?
Huh?
You want to be liked?
Me? Oh, you're asking me that question.
No, I say people want to be liked.
Oh, yeah. Of course, yeah. People want to be liked, and you know, it's not that it's a horrible mindset, but just don't make that your duty. Don't make that like, where you feel. It bugs you the fact that, let's say, someone doesn't like you. Let me say it like that. If it kind of eats at you, that's already a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Your friends, if they like you, that's great. Obviously, you like your friends. You know, you build that relationship. You build that bond, right? You build that kind of connection. No harm is in that, right?
Mhm.
But in no way am I going to, you know, make it my role where if you're upset, I have to make you feel better.
Mhm.
I do that because I want to, not because I have to, right? If you're depressed or in anything, you know, because we're in this day and age where a lot of people are hearing bad news and bad things are happening, right? It's not going to be a surprise where you're going to know someone who's going through some rough times, right?
Mhm.
And it's okay to cheer them up, right? That's not my job. That's just I want to. I want you to cheer up, right?
Mhm.
But it's not my duty where I'm a bleed something out just for you to feel a little bit slight of happiness, right? You only do that to people who deserve it. But then
Sure.
that's the thing, they deserve it, not because it's your duty, right?
Not because it's your obligation.
It's not your obligation. It's just what you want to do. I want to spoil Bruce because he deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
As people know, he is a good boy.
Yep. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Bruce is a good boy. Shout out to Bruce, man. We're going to talk about Bruce next time we get Derek on the podcast. But Derek, my friend, my brother, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Shout out to him for sitting down. You are the first guest.
Ah,
Yeah.
I feel honored.
You should.
Oh.
You should.
It's because of Bruce, right? You wanted to see him.
Both of you guys.
Oh.
Both of you guys. They're a duo. They are inseparable. But anyhow, thank you, man, for sitting down. It was a good conversation.
Of course.
We'll have to do another one.
Yeah.
For the other stuff.
We'll do round 2.
There you go. Bye, everybody.